As if Strangers Chapter 1 and 2 weren't bad enough, for some reason we went to Strangers Chapter 3. So Aiden, what's the plot of Strangers Chapter 3?
Strangers Chapter 3 is the big finale. This series has been building up to a big lore revelation. All they wanted to do was tell the backstory of the strangers. And it turns out the serial killers who had been killing people in a cult for many years had been doing that for many years.
Well, they established that in the last movie.
They elaborated on it.
They elaborated further.
You might have thought that they were only doing this for 5 years, but did you know they were doing it for 15? And then the girl from Riverdale gets kidnapped and Quentin Reviews forces her to kill someone, and then she's like, I'm really sad, and then she kills him.
Yep.
And that's the entire plot. Connor, what'd you think of the Strangers Chapter 3?
I'm willing to confidently say that this is the worst trilogy of films I've ever seen. The thing about trilogies is usually what most often happens when trilogies are bad is it's like there's one really good movie and everybody loved it and it was really popular, so they made a second and a third movie that didn't turn out too hot, but they kept making money, so they made two more or more, you know. This series is strange. I'm just going to kind of reflect on the series as a whole, because at this point, there's nothing new to add. This film has horrendous pacing. It's 100% padding. Number 2 is 100% padding. And number 3 is somehow 110% padding. There is nothing that happens in this movie. No,
Strangers Chapter 2 was 100% padding.
This
was
movie
like 99%
It's
padding.
like, do you remember the girl from the last movie who died at the end? Here's her backstory for 45 minutes.
Okay, but Strangers Chapter 2 also said, well, we have to do something to get this up to 90 minutes, so here's 45 minutes of Riverdale walking around in the woods and fighting a pig.
That's true. And this movie was an hour and 15 minutes of telling the backstory of deceased characters, ending in a fake out romance because she was so fake horny that Quentin Reviews killed her family and friends, that she was going to pretend that she was going to become the new stranger and then ends up killing him. There's literally like 20 minutes of new material here, and everything else is origins for characters that are already dead from movies that no one has reverence for. Number 2 and 3 are both horrendous padding. I would argue that between 2 and 3's 90-minute and 90-minute runtime, approximately 3 hours of that is padding, you know? 3 hours of the two 90-minute movies between them.
Yeah.
The Strangers Chapter 1 was a fucking horrendous slasher movie.
Yep.
And these movies beg the question, what if more shit happened, but nothing important? But what if we made 2 more movies about that not important shit that also happened? There's like a single fucking kill in this movie that's not old, like flashback kills, and even the new kill in the present day is like not like a fun slasher movie kill. It's just kind of like mean-spirited. It's like, we're killing the random people, which is kind of the plot of The Strangers, sure, but like, I don't know. I don't need to hear some lady scream for 15 minutes while he stabs her 5 times and the main character cries and has boogies coming out of her nose. I don't care. And then you cut to another flashback and it's like, what's the fucking point? We've already seen the first movie was a slasher movie with the last 15 minutes cut out. And that last 15 minutes was stretched to 90 minutes for The Strangers Chapter 2. Which in reality was her getting away and then killing everybody but the one guy. And then this was like some sort of battle of wits between the main character and the main slasher man.
Battle of Wits is pretty generous.
Battle of Wits is very generous because an hour and 15 minutes of this movie is telling the backstory for characters we don't give a fuck about and no one remembers, because the only thing people remember from Strangers Chapter 1 and 2 are the shit that pissed them off. I remember the boar from Chapter 2 because it looked terrible and it pissed me off at the time. I remember Chapter 1 being a subpar slasher movie. I mean, every character besides the lead woman is killed within like the first half hour of the first movie.
Yeah.
So what we're left with for the preceding 4 hours of this fucking series is just a lady running around and screaming and arbitrary flashbacks to nameless slasher characters that we don't care about. I don't care about the backstory of a slasher character. Like, sure, you can elaborate in the sick, and you know, if Freddy got some elaboration sprinkled throughout his fucking 10 movies, but people actually liked fucking Freddy. It was bold to assume anyone would care about these random 4 douchebags in fucking masks killing people. You know, Michael Myers was just killing people randomly to be a fucking dick, but Michael Myers was fucking scary and Michael Myers was cool. These characters fucking suck. It's pretty much that simple. I mean, there really doesn't need to be much. And I could tell the movie was fucked from the moment obviously it's The Strangers Chapter 3 and the first 2 were bad, and it's like, you can't save a horse, you know, that's, you know, on the verge of death, you know? There's only so much you can do.
Probably just already dead by the point we got to
3. We were beating the dead horse by the halfway mark of Strangers Chapter 1 when there was no chance of saving even the first of 3 entries. But, I mean, I don't know. I don't like the main character. I don't like the side characters. The main character in 4.5 hours had not developed character. She screams and she's sad. Like, the reason most slasher movies are 90 minutes is because there's nothing else you can do. This movie dared to ask, what if we finished the plot after the first movie, but then just continued for an extra 3 fucking hours, and then divided it into 3 pieces and expected people to go 3 times? The only reason this film trilogy ever happened was because somehow the director convinced them to let him fucking film all 3 back to back. It was too late to fucking turn back. That was kind of the understanding from the jump with the first movie, is that it was just simply too late to come back, and then 2 came out and you're like, wow, they should have just canceled this, and then 3 came out and you're like, they should have just canceled this. I mean, there wasn't even any kills. It was just so fucking boring. And it was all flashbacks to dumb shit that no one cares about. And for some reason, I remember in the first movie feeling pissed off, and I couldn't really explain it at the time. And then in the second movie, I felt pissed off throughout because it was clearly wasting my time. And the third movie also wasted my time and also pissed me off. Like, I was fucking irritated at the movie the whole time for fucking existing. I feel like I was scammed, you know? It was a fucking horrendous fucking mess. I don't think it was as incoherent and bad as Silent Hill as a movie. I think there were some better fundamentals here, but it was just another terrible, pointless fucking story. Silent Hill does, in its favor, have that, while the story's horrendously fucking bad, and it was shot like shit, and there was terrible CGI, and it was incomprehensible, at least it was building to a start-to-end narrative. This is like, the movie's been over, and somehow I also just felt the weight of the previous 3 hours of movie that I had watched before. From the first frame, I was already irritated, I was already bored, I had already fucking sat through too much. I have no idea why I decided to go to the second movie, let alone the third movie, but here we are, we've completed the Strangers trilogy. So Aiden, what did you think of Strangers Chapter 3? And I suppose you probably have things to say about the trilogy as a whole.
You know, you say that, but I kinda don't. These are 3 really nothing movies. The first one is the best, question mark, by virtue of being the one that almost resembles
a film,
like 60% of a movie. And then there's 3 hours of filler tacked onto the back. This one's better than the second. I mean, the second just It's a person in the woods movie where it's just Riverdale walking around the woods fighting a pig for 40 minutes to fill time. And this one technically had events that moved the story forward, and by that I mean it ended, finally. There's really nothing to say at this point. The third one, Chapter 3, is just a series of flashbacks that are like, you want to know what the strangers were doing 12 years ago? And it turns out that what they were doing 12 years ago is exactly what they were doing.
What they should be doing fucking now. What they should be, because they're not fucking doing it anymore.
Hey.
They're all fucking dead.
Her sister gets killed because the guy knocks over a trailer or something. Something happens. I was playing Pokemon Go. I couldn't tell you what happened.
Yeah, no, he started ramming the trailer. He does kill like a single person in this movie, and she shoots her dad with the shotgun, but they didn't have money for a squid. So it cuts back to him, and it looks like he's got a ketchup stain on his shirt, and he falls back. Pratt falls. Ketchup, little Pratt fall.
It's hard to justify making a movie that's nothing but lore about three characters however many there were at the start. But in the first movie, none of them talked, and in the second movie, I think she like briefly rode around in a truck with Quentin Reviews, and then Quentin Reviews has like 3 lines in this movie right at the start, and then it's just an incomprehensible series of flashbacks to like... This movie just cold opens on a flashback kill that has nothing to do with anything. There's literally no momentum in the story. And really no stakes, because it's like, okay. The stakes are that Quentin Reviews finds her hot and wants to make her into a serial killer, and she says no. Which I guess you could also say about Star Wars, but
yeah,
Star Wars is a much more fun movie than this.
Yeah, I mean, it's technically not a terrible idea. I don't understand what's so special about this character. In this case it is, but I mean, like, inherently, like, the, I guess most famously, like, Turn to the Dark Side storyline is fine, but, like, in the second movie,
yeah,
she keeps surviving, and in this movie he says, you've survived so much that now I respect you, and now I want to have sex with you.
Yeah.
And then there was the really cheesy line that the director thought was great, where he advertised Bullet Bourbon, and he said the only way to get out of here is with this. And then he hands her a shot, and she says, what do you mean? And he said, it's Bullet Bourbon. And the only way you're getting away from me is a bullet to the head. Like, you had to explain that, because...
yeah. That was clever product placement. That probably paid for half the budget.
Yeah, I mean, you had to start filling in.
Yeah. If your budget's $40 and you get a $20 product placement, you've made half the budget already, like an Adam Sandler movie.
Yeah. Or like the Amazing Spider-Man movies, where Sony paid like 14 cents out of pocket because they kept advertising random products, including Sony products, but not limited to, of course.
I guess, like, the thing is... This is probably the worst trilogy ever made. But even more than that, it's probably the most boring trilogy ever made. Of 3 movies that are so insufferably void of anything happening. Especially these latter 2.
You know, it'd be really meta, because you know slasher movies always have the meta entry. Picture this. Strangers Chapter 4. The masked man kidnaps somebody, tapes him to a chair, and makes him watch the Strangers trilogy, and then says that's the imposters. They made a bad movie trilogy about me. Then he cuts their head off with the axe, you know? Then he cuts their head off with the axe, and the person screams even though their head and vocal cords are disconnected. There's a loud screech. Yeah, no,
that's how I felt watching these movies.
And I'm thinking, like, instead of parring out, like, 2 kills per movie, 0 flashbacks, you know. If anything, the backstory is just making the previous movies less scary, you know. Because part of the fun of the idea of the strangers is like, you know, you don't know who they are. You know, they're just people.
They're the strangers, chapter 3.
Strangers. They're not strangers anymore. I've seen their entire fucking life story after they were already dead, you know?
Yeah.
So I think, if anything, these lore movies actually just retroactively somehow make the first movie worse. Theoretically. I'm never going to put the theory into practice and test it out, but...
yeah. It was, you know, Remy Harlan scammed Lionsgate and scammed me.
I don't know if Lionsgate was involved by this one, though. Because I didn't see a single Lionsgate logo.
No, Lionsgate distributed this one, too.
Oh, maybe they're like, just stop.
They were already filmed, I guess.
Do you think it was too late for him to switch to Alan Smithy? Like, he's like, I think The Strangers Chapter 3 should just be put out by Alan Smithy.
Starring Alan Smithy. Written by Alan Smithy. Directed by Alan Smithy. Director of photography, Alan Smithy.
Potentially someone wouldn't realize that, like, these
second key grip, Alan Smithy.
Hyper connected. Second key grip was also like, no. You know, I feel like if the cinema... I guess I just wouldn't want to be attached by name. The cinematography was fine for the most part. Yeah, it's almost sad because the worst thing about it is everything Remy Harlan did and everything else was... And the acting.
It is
but
nice
in terms
that,
of, like, technical aspects, it wasn't the
They
worst.
went back and did a bunch of reshoots and re-editing, so, like... You know, the first movie had the worst day-to-night ever put in a film. And by the third one, the day-to-night was, like... passable.
Can you imagine what it would be like to see the original edit?
No, not really. This is the good version of the movies. They went
This
back
is the fix.
and said this isn't good enough, we have to fix it. And it still came out like this.
Oh god, it's just...
Connor, would you recommend The Strangers Chapter 3 or any of the movies in this trilogy?
No, the trilogy is easily the worst trilogy I can think of. I searched my brain for other trilogies that I think are worse, but I think the ultimate problem is behind every trilogy is typically a movie that at least made money, and if it made money, that means it probably wasn't the worst piece of shit ever. By all accounts, it was coherent, etc. This movie challenges the idea of what if we made one of the worst slashers of the last 10 years and then extended it for 3 fucking hours.
Even like The Hobbit has one semi-watchable movie.
Yeah, I mean the first Hobbit's fine. The second Hobbit, the thing is, like the first 2 Hobbits are fine. They're like CGI heavy and nowhere near Lord of the Rings.
The second one's a little bit.
The problem with the second movie specifically is that they paywalled the ending behind a movie that was coming out a year later.
I don't know. There's a couple other questionable things in the second movie.
Yeah, the
like
barrels
and the comic relief unibrow man.
And adding all the random fucking Lord of the Rings characters.
Gandalf's side quest where he goes and fights the Atari demon.
Yeah, okay, fine. There was some questionable stuff in Hobbit too, but
it was better than the third one.
By comparison, you got like an okay movie starting The Hobbit, a bad movie, a neutral bad movie as the second one, and the third one I don't even know because I slept through it.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad.
I just know it was a big war. But at least by and large, you know, you're padding out a good story. The Hobbit, the biggest problem with The Hobbit is how fucking padded it is. Yeah. But at least you're padding out a good story, and you're adding a bunch of unnecessary shit to a story that, at its core, somewhere deep down is a good story. And, you know, perhaps there's a level of, well, you're kind of blasphemizing the material, which is possible. That's an argument to be made, sure, but this is a terrible fucking slasher, one of the worst of the last 10 years that they extended 3 hours for no goddamn reason with no...
Yeah.
What he said is, I'm going to make a trilogy of movies that's going to create one super movie, and it's slasher trilogy. But then he wrote a subpar slasher that had to be subpar, especially to accommodate the fact that there were 2 more movies. And then he said, alright, time to write the second and third movie. and he had no idea. It seems like something him and his buddies came up with while they were blowing that Die Hard 2 TV royalty checks up their noses, you know? While they were sniffing those Die Hard royalty checks up their nose. And then he said, wait, what if I made like one horror movie, but it was actually 3 horror movies? Also, it's surprising that it's like a 65-year-old man who made this and not like some fucking
21-year-old coming right out of film school.
Well, that's what it feels like, but also I was thinking more like a 35-year-old man who like dressed in a black tuxedo and had an Abraham Lincoln hat and was like pale, you know, like I'm talking like one of those like Elvira horror geeks.
Okay.
Convention nerds.
Yeah, I could see it.
This guy's made like real fucking movies and not just real horror movies. He made like, I mean, and to be fair, he was always a sequel guy. He's never done anything good that's original. Even this, you know. Why was this The Strangers?
This is a bad movie.
This could have just been his own concept. There was no need for this to be a Strangers concept. Not that I hold reverence for the Strangers franchise. I don't think I've ever seen the previous movie or movies of the Strangers. But
I've seen the first one and it's like a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, but I do remember
to justify whatever this shit
like
was.
Strangers and Hatchet both came out around the time of the like Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street bad reboots, and they were like, what if we were like the bad reboots but without source material?
Strangers was also following in the wake of You're Next, which is like the only good home invasion movie, probably.
Yeah.
So that was.
But
something.
I mean, this was a home invasion movie for 12 minutes at the start. My point being is that it could have just been, you know, pick a mask, pick a murder weapon. It didn't necessarily need to be The Strangers, other than the fact that if you called it a reboot and you said we're rebooting this viable franchise, it was going to help the Lionsgate people write in their notebooks faster and double the budget.
Yeah, I mean.
So I guess I understand economically.
Like semi-cult film. Everyone was kind of like, it's okay.
I don't know if it was a cult film. I do remember seeing it at Blockbuster, and I remember people talking about it in like 2005, 6, or 8 or 10. I don't fucking know when.
I don't think it was ever good enough to be a cult film.
I think the problem is with calling it cult. I think it was a film that was popular at the time. I don't know if I would call it a cult because I don't know anybody today who still goes, let's watch The Strangers. What movie? I want to call it.
A lot of people, when Strangers Chapter 1 came out, not so much the case for 2 and 3, because most people
fell off the boat.
rightfully jumped off. But Strangers Chapter 1, a lot of the letterbox reviews were like, I loved The Strangers when I was 7.
Yeah, and when I was 7, The Strangers came out, and I remember it was popular, but I, to this day, have never seen it. But, I guess no. I don't understand why they did it. I think it's a unique piece of film history that somebody like basically. I mean, it really does seem like something a 12-year-old or a neurodivergent man at a horror convention would come up with.
Yeah. And
not something that would ever be made. Not that.
What if the slasher movie was just the prelude to 2 boring lore movies?
Yeah, pretty much. It feels very fan fiction-y. It's like, what if we had we tried to do a real slasher movie, but it was bad, but then we had 2 fan fiction continuations tacked on at the end. But it doesn't feel like something that would ever leave the halls of the Hotel Ramada, one half HorrorCon, upstairs HorrorCon, downstairs FurryCon type of environment.
Doesn't smell of shit wafting through the entire hotel room from both floors.
Corey Feldman is like the keynote speaker, and then you got like Kid Jason there. You got
some guy who was an extra in Halloween 2.
The final girl from Nightmare on Elm Street Chapter 6. The girl who gets pregnant by Freddy and the Dream Child.
The second key grip from Friday the 13th, too.
Yeah. Some guy who 20 years ago ran a magazine that lasted for 4 years about classic Universal monsters.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That kind of horror convention where somebody would propose it to another guy and the other guy would say, I don't know if that would work so well. And then they go, yeah, and then it dies there. Or maybe, like, they're really drunk at the after party and somebody kind of gets on board and you guys start spitballing it before you say, I don't know if that'd really work. And then both of you guys go, yeah. And that's it.
Yeah.
So, no, I wouldn't recommend it. I thought it was one of the fucking stupidest, probably the worst trilogy I've ever seen. I earnestly think each movie is fucking horrendous. There wasn't a single one that, like, had any sort of leg up. It was 4.5 horrendous hours. So, Aiden, would you recommend The Strangers Chapter 3?
No. No, I mean, even if you saw the second one, it's not too late to jump off, you know? I wish I had. I don't know.
Yeah.
There was a morbid curiosity going into this one, like, how can they possibly continue?
Well,
and the problem is that they really don't. Like, I kept, you know, I wouldn't say I was optimistic because these movies all fucking sucked, but I was hoping that it'd be, like, at least funny or
I think
something. I don't know what I was hoping for.
For both 2 and 3, I had this thing where until my ass was in the seat and I was looking at the screen as the last couple trailers played before the movie, I started to realize, why the fuck did we book this movie? and I guess, like, for the second movie, it was morbid curiosity mostly. For this third movie, the curiosity was gone. It was a fucking moral obligation to support a fucking horrible movies. To say we watched them all, or I can't. Yeah. I don't know if that's a justification. I don't know if it's a justification for going, but that's arguably why we went.
Just one of the most truly pathetic set of films that have ever been made. Boring. Uncannily boring.
Like, 1 was baffling, 2 and 3 were pathetic.
Even, like, you know, there's a lot of bad slasher movies, but even the bad ones can usually kind of crutch themselves up on, like, slashing. You get to see some blood.
You gotta have some slashing.
And this movie has a lot of people die. I mean, primarily in flashbacks, but not in any way that's entertaining or interesting or scary or advances the plot or interesting or pretty much any.
We see the death of characters by dead characters that took place 12 years ago.
The death of nameless characters by nameless dead characters.
If it was like we started young and there was like a 45-second, you know, I feel like a good movie if they were like trying to explain the origin of the man. This movie's like, we're going to explain the origin of the man and his first killings and the origin of the girl who's dead and the origin of a friend who is also dead. And I feel like what would really have tightened up the plot a little bit is if
condensing it to one movie.
Even the hypothetical that there's 3 movies, you smash the 45 minutes of flashbacks into one flashback to the relevant character within this movie, the evil Quentin Reviews guy, and instead of being like 15 minutes apiece, they were like 45 seconds. It was like one 45-second flashback, or perhaps like 3 dramatic 15-second flashbacks where he's a kid and he says, Dad, I'm not like other kids.
Yeah, the Michael Myers flashback in the first Halloween movie is like 60 seconds long.
And it's at the start, and it's badass to explain why this character's bad fucking ass in the relevant movie.
Yeah.
Or why he's scary killer man at the very least, if not badass.
Yeah, don't watch The Strangers Chapter 3 or any of these movies. In fact, if you saw them induce some kind of head trauma, forget you saw them. Yeah.
I think it'd be a good form of torture to strap somebody to a chair. Maybe just make the director. Okay, here's a social experiment that I think we should send. We gotta send President Donald Trump a letter to make an executive order that Remy, whatever, director man has to be strapped to a seat, eyes peeled open like a Clockwork Orange, and just sit there for 45 minutes, and we're gonna monitor his heart rate to see if he has, if he's actually entertained. We're gonna scientifically prove and see if even the director of this movie can be entertained for 4.5 hours through the trilogy. Because I genuinely believe if the director actually proof-watched this shit.
Made me feel bad for the girl from Riverdale for having to be in this shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I do feel bad for her. I don't know who she is. I've never seen an episode of Riverdale, and I never planned to, but I think this was really unfair that her career was dragged into this crap. Slaughtered. You should do a flashback to her childhood where she's like, I'm dreaming of becoming a dramatic actor, and she's thinking about winning Oscars and shit. Strangers Trilogy. Alright, well, if there's a Strangers Chapter 4, we'll probably go. I don't, obviously it's not gonna happen, but if they were to invite him back to make the Chapter 4, 5, and 6, probably say the same. We would probably say the same thing 3 more times.
Maybe they'll reboot it again. The Strangers Chapter 1, 2.
What if Lionsgate made a press release where they said right director, wrong script? They announced chapters 4 through 7.
4 through 7?
The problem was he didn't have enough time.
If I just had that one more movie.
The flashbacks really took the very necessary flashbacks took up the last third of his mission.
I think you should release the Remy cut, Strangers Chapter 2, the extended version where it's just 90 minutes of her fighting a pig in the woods.
I think they call it The Strangers, the Remy cut, and it's all 3 movies hyper linked together with another movie's worth of added scenes, plus The Strangers Chapter 4, where Remy is Riverdale is now the killer, as implied at the end in the wholly unique twist that the victim is now the killer. Okay, imagine Friday the 13th Part 4. You know how Corey Feldman gets Jason's mask and is like, I'm going to be the killer now?
Yeah.
Imagine if at the end of Friday the 13th Chapter 4, between the scenes, there was 3 hours of expansion across 2 movies. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Just so Corey Feldman can hold the mask and say, I'm the killer now.